So first of all, let's take a look at part of the AD Connect configuration with regards to password hash and Exchange hybrid deployment. So we have ticked password hash synchronization and single sign-on here. So single sign-on automatically sign users in when they are on their corporate devices connected to your corporate network. So when enabled, basically users don't need to type in their passwords to sign into Azure AD or Office 365, and usually even type in their username. So this feature provides your users with easy access to your cloud-based applications without needing any additional on-premise components. So password hash synchronization synchronizes a hash of the user's password from an on-premise AD to Azure AD. So this enables us to sign in to Azure AD services like Office 365 using our full domain UPN and password, in this case username at cloudinspired.co.uk. We also take Exchange hybrid deployment here within AD Connect. So this feature allows for the coexistence of Exchange mailboxes both on-premise and in Office 365. So Azure AD Connect is synchronizing a specific set of attributes from Azure AD back into your on-premise directory. For example, details on mailbox moves being written back to the on-premise directory and other Exchange attributes. So we don't cover the full install of AD Connect here, only the config we'll be using to sync for Office 365. So if you need information how to fully install and configure AD Connect within your domain, there's a video in this channel, links are below in the description to cover that. So we need to set up our domain in Office 365. So as you can see, this has been verified as part of the full AD Connect install. As I said before, it's covered in a separate video, links below. So if you haven't reached that part yet with your domains being verified in Azure and the whole AD Connect piece, then please check out the video in the description. So let's go to admin.microsoft.com, the Office 365 portal, to set up our domain. So on the left, if you go to Setup, Domains, and then if we confirm, and then we can just add our domain that's already been verified here, and it's as easy as that. So basically our .co.uk domain is verified. Our cloudinspired.com domain we won't be using during this configuration, so it's not verified yet. So to enable our cloud users, we will need a license. So in this case, we will use a trial license of Microsoft E3. So to avoid any confusion, Microsoft recently renamed their licensing names from Office to Microsoft. Therefore, what was Office E3 is now Microsoft E3. So this is how we set it up for a trial. So go to the Microsoft E3 URL, links are in the description for your convenience. Then we'll need to click the trial and we're logged in with our global admin user in Azure. So we enter our phone number and go through the process to complete. So we have a look in the Office 365 portal under active users. We can see that our cloud admin account that we set the trial up with has all got a license automatically assigned. We can assign further licenses by going into each user and then just ticking the Office 365 tick box. We can also go over to licensing in the Azure portal and see what's available and licenses used, etc. So normally to set this up correctly, we would create an AD group on premise and let this sync back up to Azure. So then we would add that group in here. So that would give us the ability to just add users to that group and they would be automatically get assigned a Microsoft E3 license. We can now log into our cloud mailbox. Now it's licensed. We can download our Office applications if we like to our devices, or we can access our applications such as Outlook or Word directly online through the portal. So let's take a look at our current on-premise Exchange configuration. So if we log into the Exchange Admin Center, and then if we click Mail Flow on the left and then the Send Connector up in the top right. So we can see we have a working Send Connector that allows us to send mail that's handled and associated with the recipient domain by the domain registrar via the MX record. We also have our receive connector allowing incoming mail on port 25, and we have our accepted domain cloudinspired.co.uk, so mail is flowing successfully internally and externally through these connectors. So it's important that we configure our on-premise virtual directories before we carry out the hybrid installation, as these rely on a successful install. So I've run some PowerShell here to list the directories that are configured for internal and external usage to match our certificate namespace shown later on. For the EWS virtual directory, it's important that this has an external namespace configured on our Exchange EXCH02 server, as this will be used by the mailbox replication service when it's installed on that server. Also, the proxy endpoint needs to be ticked on the EWS virtual directory, as it's used for cross-forest mailbox moves and remote move migrations between your on-prem Exchange organization and Office 365. Also, basic authentication is ticked in this configuration. So migration endpoint communications must happen securely over SSL. Therefore, when choosing the external endpoint in the EWS directory, you must make sure that the valid certificate is used on the Exchange server. The host name must be covered, in this case mail.cloudinspired.co.uk. Hybrid mail flow is configured to use Transport Layer Security (TLS) by default. So this is to stop any security compromise between on-premise and Office 365. Therefore, a valid certificate issued by a trusted public certificate authority must be purchased and installed. So you can't just use the default self-signed certificate installed in Exchange. The subject name or the subject alternative name on the certificate used to negotiate TLS must match the fully qualified domain name used to connect to the remote server. So in this case, it's mail.cloudinspired.co.uk, which is configured for HTTPS, SMTP, and IMAP. Here we can see the MX record in our domain registrar. The MX record specifies the mail server responsible for accepting email messages on behalf of a domain name. So it's a resource record within DNS. In this case, any mail for cloudinspired.co.uk is received and handled by our on-premise Exchange server through the public address issued here. The hybrid agent is built on the same technology as Azure Application Proxy, so this makes life a little easier as it removes some requirements for external DNS entry, certificate updates, and inbound network connections through your firewall to enable Exchange hybrid features. Ports required for the agent are outbound 443 and 80. They must be open between the server that has the hybrid agent installed and the internet. Ports 443, 80, 5985 and 5986 must be open between the server that has the hybrid agent installed and the Exchange client access server that's selected in the hybrid configuration wizard. All client access servers must also be able to reach outbound to Microsoft 365, Office 365 endpoints via HTTPS port 443. Can also verify connectivity. So if you can download the script in the description and then run this, so that will verify the connectivity. We'll do this now. Okay, and then that will come back with any issues with connectivity. As you can see in this instance, we need to enable TLS to continue with the hybrid installation. Okay, so we're now at the point where we can actually install the hybrid connection wizard. So if we go into the Exchange Admin Center, go to hybrid, click on modify under setup, and then we can log in with our cloud account. In this case, it's going to be cloud admin at cloudinspired.co.uk, which is a global admin. Okay, if we click configure and then click install and then wait for that to download. Okay, now if we click run, and this will now launch the hybrid wizard. So if we click next, and it detects the optimal Exchange server to install the wizard on. So in this case, it's Exchange O2. So we have very options. We'll go with the default, click next. Okay, we need to sign in with our Exchange Online account, which is cloudadmin at cloudinspired.co.uk. If we enter our password, okay, if we now click next, so it will now go away and gather all the config information is required. So in this demo, we're going to go for the full hybrid configuration. Let me click next. And we will choose the modern hybrids topology, which is the latest. And then we'll type our on-premise account. For our administrator, type the password. Click OK, click next. And then it goes away and installs the hybrid agent. And then once that's validated, click next. And then we're going to go for the typical installation, the first option, because we're using client access and mailbox servers. If we're using Edge Transport, we would choose the second option. And then we're going to use Exchange O2 for the receive and then Exchange O1 for the send connector. And we'll choose our default transport certificate. So the FQDN here is mail.cloudinspired.co.uk. And then we'll click next. And then update ready for the configuration and installation. So let's now check out what's actually changed after the hybrid install. So if we go to Exchange from the admin center, and now if we click on Mailflow and go to connectors, we can see two new connectors have been installed here. So this first connector is a connector from on-premise to Office 365. And we can see our namespace we have here. And if we take a look at the second connector, so this is a connector from Office 365 back to on-premise. And here we specify which domains can use this connector. And this is where we specify TLS is used together with the SAN names within the certificate. And then we have our accepted authoritative domains issued here also. So here we're now going to test some mail flow to see if it's all working. So if we go to the first connector, we can actually test to see whether we've got mail flowing from Office 365 back to our on-premise Exchange server. So if we just go through this wizard, and at the end we've got a validation tool here. So if we click the plus sign, and we can add in our email address. So in this case, it's mailbox01@cloudinspired.co.uk, which is a mailbox on-premise. And now we can validate whether we can send an email. So as we can see, we've actually got a failure here. And the failure is we can't connect to our remote server from Office 365. So if we go back to the wizard again, and we might need to change something on the connector. So if we look at here and click next. So if we untick that box and then just use a signed certificate instead, and now we can redo the test. Okay, so if we type our mailbox address again, click OK, and now it'll attempt to send that mail again from Office 365 to our on-premise mailbox. And now we've got a succeeded message, which we can confirm the mail was sent. If we go to our on-premise mailbox, we can see that there's a message in there as well. And then we can also connect to the cloud admin mailbox within the cloud, within Office 365, and then we can send a message to on-premise. So that's working that way. If we test back, so if we do a reply on that message from on-premise to O365, we actually get a problem. And the message we get is DNS records for this domain are configured in a loop. And this also gives us the same message if we try and send externally from, say, a Hotmail or Gmail account to our cloud mailbox as well. So in summary, we have issues with the following error of messages bouncing. This happens when we send emails to Office 365 mailbox, so from on-premise mailbox 1, and also from an external email address as well. So this can be resolved by configuring the MX records for Office 365 in your domain registrar, and then removing the existing MX records that point internally. We'll actually cover that in the next steps. If you didn't want to go down number 1 route just now, we can configure number 2, which is a smart host on your SMTP outbound connector instead of being looped back through the current MX records. And then 3, which we're not going to cover today, but we could provision additional services with a hub transport role, and then we can configure the option to keep one set of hub transport servers for receiving mail and another set of hub transport servers for sending mail. So let's quickly cover option 2 here now. So if we go to our SMTP connector, our send connector, and we can see we can issue a smart host on the SMTP outbound connector instead of looping back through the current MX records. So we're going to go for the option 1 here. So the MX record can be changed at any time after the hybrid configuration installation. So some companies choose to change the MX record in a hybrid migration straight away. This can be beneficial so that we can use and utilize the Exchange Online Protection. So Exchange Online Protection is a hosted email security service. Basically, it's owned by Microsoft. It filters spam and removes computer viruses from email messages. So the service does not require client software installation, but is activated by changing each customer's MX records. Some companies may also choose to change their MX record later in the project where most or all the mailboxes have been migrated over to Office 365. So this is entirely your choice and based upon your requirements and configuration. So here's how to change the MX records for Office 365. So in the Exchange admin portal, if we go to domains, we can see our domain there. If we go to DNS, we can see our records here have got a red mark basically against them because they're not being populated within our domain register yet. So this is the DNS records before for our on-premise configuration. And these are the DNS records now configured for Office 365. So if we go back to Office 365 and click refresh, we should see now these all turn green to say that they're configured correctly within DNS. So now we're ready to move a mailbox from on-premise to Office 365. So with an Exchange Admin Center, if we go to Migration, click the plus sign, Migrate to Exchange Online. We click the plus sign again and we can choose our mailbox that we wish to migrate. So in this case, it's mailbox 01. Now, if we choose our migration endpoint, now this part is auto-populated with our EWS directory that we configured earlier with the proxy endpoint. So if we type our batch name, and then if we click next and finish, we can now connect to Exchange Online via PowerShell. If we type our credentials, and then we can connect. Okay, and then we can run a command called move request just to check to see whether the mailbox has now been synced, and it has been synced. So if we look in Exchange Admin Center, we can see that's a user right now. So if we click refresh, we can see that's changed to Office 365. So that's now confirmed that mailbox has been migrated and hosted within Office 365. Also, we can connect using single sign-on using Outlook to our new mailbox within the cloud.